So we don't really hear what's going on, but you've been diligent in following since the raid at Mar-a-Lago on Trump's property. What is the real story behind all of this? Hello and welcome to the Rich Dad Radio Show. I'm Kim Kiyosaki, your host for today's show. And I promise you today's show is going to be extremely important and extremely timely. One of the things we like to do at the Rich Dad Radio Show is bring you the facts, not opinions necessarily. A lot of people today are touting their opinions as facts. And what we like to do is bring the facts to you. And two of the things that we're going to talk about today and bring you the facts on is one, what the heck is happening with our judicial system, the court system, the lines. Our nation is built on, our nation is a nation of laws, and those lines surrounding those laws are getting more and more blurred every day. So we're going to talk about that. And then speaking of the court system, one of the biggest court cases right now happening is the case with President Trump in New York City. We're going to bring you some of the facts and reveal some of the things that are actually going on in that case. So today's going to be a very, very revealing show for you. My guest today is attorney Mike Davis. Mike Davis has been practicing law for, I believe, 20 years. He is the founder of the Article 3 Project. And the priorities, as stated on his website of the Article 3 Project, is one, protect judiciary. Number two, fight big tech, bring accountability to the internet. And three, defend free speech. So Mike has also, for the last 20 months, been following aggressively the Trump case since the raid on Mar-a-Lago. So we're going to get a lot of great insights from Mike. And Mike, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So if you would just give our viewers a little bit of your background and why you founded the Article 3 Project, what the Article 3 Project is.
I'm from Iowa. I come from a working class family. I went to the University of Iowa for undergrad, where I interned for then House Speaker Newt Gingrich. I answered the phone when Ken Starr's office called to say they were delivering the Starr Report, and my last day during that internship was the same day that they impeached Bill Clinton. So I had a bit of a wild ride. I started Students for George W. Bush at the University of Iowa back in 1999, graduated, was very involved in politics, graduated, worked in the Bush administration. Actually, I worked for my home state senator, Chuck Grassley, opened his mail, and then I went and worked in the Bush administration before law school. And then during law school, I worked in the Bush Justice Department both summers. And then I worked in the Bush White House after law school. That's how I met Neil Gorsuch. He became a top official in the Justice Department, and then he became a federal judge in Colorado. So I followed him out to Colorado to be one of his first law clerks for a year. And then I stayed out in Colorado as a real lawyer, doing real litigation for real clients and businesses and people. And had a great time for 10 years. And then I helped Gorsuch get put on the Trump Supreme Court list, and then picked by Trump and confirmed by the Senate and set up on the Supreme Court. I was one of his first clerks on the Supreme Court. And then I went back to Grassley's office, where I opened the mail right out of college, and I was his chief counsel for nominations on the Senate Judiciary Committee. I helped confirm a record number of Trump's judges, including Justice Kavanaugh, and a record number of circuit court judges. When Grassley stepped down as the chairman after 2 years, I left and started the Article 3 Project, and I did it because I saw during the Kavanaugh fight that there was a void on the right. There was a void among conservative groups, people who had the insider experience that I have who are willing to fight, and I'm certainly willing to fight. And so we helped make the Barrett confirmation look a lot easier than it should have been, and that helped President Trump transform the 5-4 left of center court to the 5-4 Clarence Thomas court. It is the most consequential, important accomplishment of President Trump's first term. And what we're doing at the Article 3 Project is protecting these judges after they've been confirmed. They have lifetime tenure. They have pay protection. They're not supposed to care about the politics, but they're still humans. So when Clarence Thomas, for example, is constantly attacked, we constantly defend him. We also oppose Biden's radical judges. We understand that Biden's the president. He has a majority in the Senate. It's going to be hard to stop all of his judicial nominees. So we pick judicial nominees. Like Biden selected a judicial nominee, his name is Manji, up on the Third Circuit in New Jersey, who is a radical Islamist. And so we're opposing him. And we've also, for the last 20 months, been the tip of the spear, for the first 6 months, the only person, it seemed, defending President Trump against this republic-ending lawfare by President Biden and these Biden Democrat prosecutors, this unprecedented lawfare against Trump based upon bogus allegations, and it's on many different fronts. And we've been educating the public about this and fighting constantly. I've done over 3,000 media hits since the Mar-a-Lago raid 21 months ago, on Fox, on CNN, on they featured me on MSNBC, but they never had me on. I've done quite a few media hits, and constant social media, constant opinion pieces. What we very effectively have done, we've turned lemons into lemonade. We have taken this lawfare by President Biden and these Democrat prosecutors, educated the public, and frankly turned it against Biden, where Democrats thought they were going to take out Trump with this lawfare, and it's actually making him stronger.
So why is it that the judges are actually, in many cases, they seem to be going against the Constitution, and the legal system, the judicial system, seems to trample all over the Constitution? Where is that coming from?
Where I think it's coming from is we have a deeper problem in our society. And that deeper problem is we no longer have liberals who love America in these key posts. We have leftists in these key posts. We have Marxists in these key posts. These aren't people who love America and just disagree with conservatives on the best way to get there. These are Marxists. They hate America. They don't believe in free speech. They believe in censorship. They don't believe in equality. They believe in equity. They don't believe in due process. They believe in politicized and weaponized justice systems. They believe in the Me Too presumption of guilt, and they believe the ends justify the means. And we have to put our foot down as a country. We have to say that this is unacceptable as a country to wage this lawfare, to go after your political enemies, to politicize and weaponize law enforcement, to politicize and weaponize intel agencies. This really started under President Obama. And what we need to do is say as a country that we can't let this happen. Hell no to this. If we let this happen, we are going to see our country fall apart. These are Republican tactics. This is how the Roman Republic fell. It was the lawfare by the Senate insiders against Caesar that caused him to feel desperate, and he crossed the Rubicon from Gaul into Rome that led to the Civil War and the fall of the Roman Republic. And I'm not saying that this is going to lead to a civil war, but it's going to lead to a legal tit for tat going back and forth between the parties that's going to destroy the presidency and destroy the country. And that's why it's so important that the Supreme Court, we have oral argument tomorrow on this presidential immunity case before the Supreme Court of the United States. And I'll be out there reporting for Steve Bannon in the War Room and Real America News. And this is one of the most important cases the Supreme Court will ever decide, because it is this. Is the president of the United States, any president of the United States, immune from criminal prosecution for their official acts? Not their private acts, not their personal acts, their official acts. Federal judges are immune from criminal prosecution for their official acts, so are members of Congress. Why the hell would the president of the United States not be? And this is where the Article 3 project's so important and powerful, crucial really to fill this void. The judges, these justices know that there's a right answer here, and that is that the president is immune from criminal prosecution for their official acts. But they feel the left threatening them outside of their homes like they did during the Dobbs decision. You see the left-wing media constantly attacking. That's where we are the countervailing force at the Article 3 project, to make sure that these Supreme Court justices and these other judges don't get wobbly and lose their spines.
And when will we hear the conclusion, the decision on that case?
I anticipate, based upon, I clerk for Justice Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. Generally, they are expediting this case pretty quickly, actually. But I'll say that they're going to have oral argument tomorrow. I imagine that the court will rule sometime near the end of June. This will be one of the last cases. I anticipate and hope that the Supreme Court is going to rule very narrowly that, yes, the president of the United States is immune from criminal prosecution for his official acts, and that applies to any and all presidents. And then I think the Supreme Court's going to remand this back down to D.C. Obama Judge Tanya Chutkan, and she's going to have an evidentiary hearing, a mini trial on what Jack Smith alleged against President Trump in his personal capacity versus official capacity. For example, Jack Smith said that Trump was contemplating firing his acting attorney general as part of Trump's alleged RICO conspiracy or whatever the hell he charged. I would say that a private citizen can't fire the acting attorney general of the United States. Only the president of the United States can. So that's clearly immune from criminal prosecution if the Supreme Court does what it is supposed to do here. And I would say this, if the Supreme Court does not rule that any president is immune from criminal prosecution for their official acts, I would say this, President Trump is probably going to win back the White House, regardless of what happens with these criminal trials. And do these Democrats want the Trump 47 Justice Department bringing capital murder charges against President Obama and now Judge David Barron on the First Circuit Court of Appeals, who was then Obama's legal advisor, for their extrajudicial drone strike on 2 American citizens, including a minor? Do they want the Trump 47 Justice Department bringing charges against Biden and Mayorkas and these other Biden officials for their illegal mass parole of 10 million illegal immigrants into our country and the resulting crimes that flowed from that? We can be bipartisan here. Does George W. Bush and Dick Cheney want to be charged for, at best, reckless reliance, some would say lying about the intel that led to the invasion of Iraq and led to the deaths of over 100,000 people? I mean, where does this end? And that's why it's so important that the Supreme Court protect the presidency, because this is about the separation of powers. This is about protecting the presidency. If you destroy the presidency, we will destroy our country.
And Mike, I don't think people realize how important these judge positions are. I mean, you're talking Supreme Court, you're talking federal court, you're talking district court. I understand also that a lot of these judges, when they come out of universities, have these leftist views and have these Marxist views, and they're taking that into the court. So just getting people to be aware that how important it is to support the judges that get put into place. As you and I discussed earlier, if the left, if Biden or who's ever there gets into office, their first job will be to put new people on the Supreme Court, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a very good chance that the next president of the United States, whether it's Trump or Biden, will have 2 or 3 picks on the Supreme Court. If you just look at the statistics of historical vacancies on the Supreme Court, that's what we could have in the next 4 years. And do you want President Trump or do you want President Biden replacing Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court, right? And so just imagine our country. Look at what the Democrats did during COVID lockdowns with their BLM riots, their Antifa riots, their Hamas riots.
No laws. There were no laws. They just ignored the laws.
Yeah, I mean, the Hamas riots are going to get so much worse between now and the election, right? And that's why I keep telling people to vote early, because you might not have a chance to vote on election day. Vote as early as you can, because if there are Hamas riots on election day, then good luck trying to vote. If there are Hamas riots on election day, vote as early as you can. Bank your vote. And I would say on this next election, everything is on the line. We hear this every election, but this one is actually true. This is a make or break election for our country. We can't continue down this path. And if Justice Thomas is replaced by President Biden on the Supreme Court, there goes our God-given rights to speak, to worship, to associate, to protect ourselves. Everything is on the line.
So please pay attention to what Mike just said, that something could happen on election day. Something could be planned intentionally to happen to close down the polls so that you don't vote. So what he's saying is vote early, get your vote in early. Don't wait until, which is opposite of last year or the other elections where it was like vote on the day of the election. Now you're saying vote early. So please pay attention. We're going to come right back after a break. When we come back, Mike, I want to talk to you. What actually happened on the raid of Mar-a-Lago? What were they looking for? How did this whole case against Trump even get started? So we'll talk about that when we come back, and more so, how you can actually get involved in being part of the solution versus being part of the problem, how you can get involved and be an agent for change in making sure that our country upholds its Constitution and what this country was founded for. We'll be right back.
Have you heard about the expanding influence of BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and its potential to severely impact the US dollar by possibly creating a new world currency? Even JP Morgan said, and I'm paraphrasing, the impact of BRICS would most likely be felt here in the US, where moving away from the dollar would cause our financial assets like our IRAs and 401ks to lose value. We agree with JP Morgan and many others. Now's the time to position yourself for stability, security, and wealth protection. So take it from Robert and me, whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting, we believe that gold should be a part of everyone's portfolio. Seize the opportunity to ensure your financial future with gold and do it with one of the best in the industry, Allegiance Gold. Allegiance Gold has done things right from the beginning, having earned 5 stars with TrustLink and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. Allegiance Gold can help protect your IRA or 401k with physical gold and silver, or you can have it delivered securely to your doorstep. Get up to $5,000 in free silver on a qualifying investment when you visit protectwithrobert.com today. Or you can call 844-3-ROBERT. That's 844-3-ROBERT. Robert sounded the alarm in 2023, and his warnings came true. Unfortunately for many, it was a year of lost wealth, but it was the complete opposite for the billionaire class. Now the wealthiest 10% of Americans own over 92% of all U.S. stocks. But here's the good news. You can invest just as these billionaires did. Robert has said, if you want to be rich, do what the rich do. So you can diversify across the asset classes with what are called low correlation alternative assets. For example, fine art as a tangible asset that rarely ever changes hands, the fine art market is more resistant to traditional volatility. So the fine art component of these billionaires' portfolios are at less risk. And now you can add the same blue chip art to your portfolio from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to be an art expert to do so. Masterworks, our longtime sponsor, has an art investing platform with over 880,000 people on board and nearly $1 billion in assets under management. From their successful art sales, they have consistently delivered a profit to their investors, and you can even go check their numbers. Our viewers can skip Masterworks' waitlist by using the link in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm Kim Kiyosaki. Thank you for being with us today. As CEO and co-founder of the Rich Dad Company, I can assure you Robert and I are both dedicated to our Rich Dad mission to elevate the financial well-being of humanity. And you are the humanity. We truly want you to succeed. When you succeed, we all succeed, and our mission grows stronger. With that in mind, I'm excited to extend a personal invitation to you to elevate your financial well-being by attending our exclusive free online wealth building event hosted by Robert. You'll learn what to focus on first to start increasing your cash flow immediately. You can reserve your seat right now by going to richdadonline.com. Just go to richdadonline.com. The event is 100% free and will help you achieve your financial goals.
Hello, and welcome back to the Rich Dad Radio Show. I'm Kim Kiyosaki, and our special guest today is Mike Davis, attorney and founder of Article 3 Project, a project that is advocating and actually taking amazing action to keep our judicial system the way the country was originally founded and meant to be, upholding our Constitution, demanding and defending free speech. Mike, thank you for being on the show, and thank you for all the work you've done. Really, really appreciate it so much. We were talking when we met about, the media does not report anything, in my opinion, that is right. It's very left. They do not present facts anymore. It's very opinionated. It's very slighted. A lot of it is lies. So we don't really hear what's going on, but you've been diligent in following since the raid at Mar-a-Lago on Trump's on Trump's property. What is the real story behind all of this?
Well, there is a real story behind this, and it's going to be shocking to many people. So what this raid in Mar-a-Lago was all about was President Trump declassified on January 19th, 2021, the day before he left office, the Crossfire hurricane records. And those records were supposed to be made public. And on January 20th, 2021, the intel officials, the FBI, they ran to the White House and said, you're going to put lives in danger. You can't do this. Sources and methods, the normal BS that you hear from law enforcement and intel agencies. So Mark Meadow, the outgoing chief of staff, signed a memo saying, okay, do your Privacy Act review to make sure that we're not putting anyone in danger, and then get out these documents. Well, guess what? The Biden administration came in and they didn't put out these documents. And let me tell you why they didn't put out these documents. These Crossfire hurricane records are so damning to Obama, Biden, Hillary, Clapper, the FBI, the Justice Department, the CIA, the intel community, because they show that these Democrat officials made up the Crossfire hurricane investigation, the Russian collusion investigation on President Trump. And let me tell you why they did this. Back in 2016, Hillary Clinton was the former Secretary of State. She was running for the presidency. She thought for sure she was going to win the presidency. A lot of people thought for sure she was going to win the presidency. And when she was the Secretary of State, as everyone knows, she had her illegal home server, right, as Secretary of State, with our nation's most classified secrets on that home server. What else was on that home server was her Clinton Foundation pay-for-play illegal bribery and foreign corruption schemes, right? And it's on this server. And that server was almost certainly hacked by our major enemies, including China and Russia, right? And so there was rumblings that the Russians were going to leak this classified this server with the classified information, and more damagingly to Hillary with the pay-for-play scheme with the Clinton Foundation. And so what did the Obama, Biden, Hillary administration do? They made up the Russian collusion hoax. They said essentially that that the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians, and that they needed to investigate this. And the reason they wanted to say the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians is because if this server ever came out, then the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Obama White House and Obama Justice Department and Obama intel agencies can say, oh, no, you can't believe that. That's not real. That's a Trump campaign dirty trick. He's colluding with the Russians, right? And so that's what they did. They came up with the Crossfire hurricane investigation, where they got secret FISA warrants. They're spying on Americans. They spied on the Trump campaign. They spied on the Trump as a candidate. They spied on President Trump while he was in the White House. They continued this Russian collusion charade for a long time, and it really obstructed President Trump's first 6 months. First, longer than that, really, that he was in the White House. It led to the Mueller probe, where Andrew Weissman was the lead deputy on that Mueller probe. I mean, there are a lot of people who were involved with this, and this was an obvious criminal conspiracy, the most damaging criminal conspiracy you can imagine. You can say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. How can you possibly say that they made up the Crossfire hurricane investigation to cover up for Hillary Clinton? Well, guess what? They ran the same play in 2020, where Hunter Biden's laptop got made public with evidence of the Biden family's clear corruption with China, with Russia, with Kazakhstan, with Ukraine. It seems like every Biden family member, except for the 6-year-old granddaughter who they finally claimed under political pressure, was on the Biden payroll. We have House Oversight Chairman showing evidence that more than $20 million have gone from foreign countries into the Biden's bank accounts, right? And so this Hunter Biden laptop comes out right before the election. The New York Post has the story. New York Post is one of the nation's oldest newspapers, right? They're going to run this story. So what happens? You had the CIA work with the Biden campaign and the 51 former intel officials to say, you can't believe this laptop story. It has all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. And then they got big tech before Elon Musk took over Twitter. They got big tech to literally take this story off the internet and deplatform the New York Post, America's oldest newspaper, because they were going to report this story, right? So it gets real damaging, right? And so President Trump is getting ready to go into a civil lawsuit. After he leaves office, he files a civil lawsuit against Hillary Clinton based upon the Russian collusion hoax and many others. And it gets put before a judge down in the Southern District of New York. One of the judges on it is Magistrate Judge Bruce Reinhart, right? He is a Democrat operative. And they found these Facebook posts where he's trashing Trump and on his Facebook. And so he had to recuse from this case. Well, 6 weeks later, after this judge, Bruce Reinhart, down in Palm Beach, down in the Southern District of Florida, recused from Trump's case, that bias magically went away. And the Biden Justice Department, Jay Bratt, working with Lisa Monaco and Garland, who personally approved this raid in the Biden White House, they raided Trump to go under the facade of an espionage investigation that Trump had stolen classified records, and it was damaging to our national security. That raid in Mar-a-Lago was all about going to get those Crossfire hurricane records that President Trump declassified the day before he left office. And maybe Trump had a copy, and maybe that's what they were after, but that's what this lawfare is all about. That's why they were trying to take out Trump, is because if he releases the goods on Crossfire Hurricane, it is going to rock our world. It's going to destroy Obama, Biden, Hillary, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA. I mean, so many players are involved with this, and that's what could come out, and that's why they fear Trump so much.
So Trump declassified the Crossfire Hurricane documents.
Yep. Via presidential memo.
Maybe took a copy with him. And then when Biden got in office, he classified them?
I don't know if he reclassified them. That's not public.
Okay.
That could be the pretext of why they went after him. But here's the deal. It doesn't matter whether Trump had classified or non-classified records. These are presidential records. And this is what I've been saying for the last 21 months since the unnecessary, unlawful, and unprecedented raid on the office of former president in Mar-a-Lago for presidential records that President Trump is allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act. Presidential records are separate from federal records, right? So the Presidential Records Act was passed in 1978, I think, and it was after Nixon tried to sell his presidential records, and the courts ruled correctly that presidential records belong to the president personally. So if the president creates, or the president or his White House staff create or receive a document, that is the president's personal record before the Presidential Records Act. Now, if the president creates or receives, and that's important, or receives a record, it is a presidential record. And under the Presidential Records Act, the president gets to access his presidential records anytime he wants. It doesn't matter whether they're classified or not. So when a president leaves office, he can access, under the statute, under the Presidential Records Act, any record he wants. So if he had the Crossfire Hurricane records in Mar-a-Lago, even if they were reclassified by Biden, he's allowed to have them under the Presidential Records Act. And what the Presidential Records Act is essentially, if it's a presidential record, it's a government document that belongs to the government that goes to the National Archives, but the president can access them anytime he wants. But under the Presidential Records Act, the president, in his sole determination, gets to decide whether something is a personal record that belongs to him or a presidential record that belongs to the government that he can access anytime he wants under the statute. And so the mere fact that if President Trump sent records out of the White House on January 20th, 2021, those are deemed personal records under the Presidential Records Act. And people think that sounds crazy. That is the precedent of the Clinton sock drawer case. That is the holding of the Clinton sock drawer case from 2012, when President Clinton had 8 years, 79 tapes of audio recordings of his presidency, highly classified recordings, in the Oval Office, set up by his White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, recording his conversations with foreign leaders, with his top intel officials, his top national security officials. This Obama judge, when Tom Fenton at Judicial Watch sued to get those records under the Presidential Records Act and under the Federal Records Act, the Obama judge correctly held that under the Presidential Records Act, it is the president's sole determination whether they are personal records that belong to him or presidential records that he can access anytime he wants. This whole hit on Trump down in Mar-a-Lago, this espionage indictment is all bogus. It's about the cover-up of Crossfire Hurricane.
So is the Presidential Records Act in question, or he has the ability to do that?
Yeah, so Judge Eileen Cannon down here is onto the Democrats' game, onto Biden and Obama and Hillary's game here, and she's asked the government, why does the Presidential Records Act not apply here, right? And so it's going to get resolved the right way, and even if it has to get to the Supreme Court of the United States, Justice Brett Kavanaugh used to be a White House counsel. He used to be the staff secretary for George W. Bush. He knows very well about presidential records, right? Because that was his job, was to manage the flow of presidential records into and out of the Oval Office, right? So he's going to be very on to the Democrats' game here, that they're using the Espionage Act that does not apply to the President of the United States or his handling of records, instead of the Presidential Records Act that applies. And there's no criminal component to the Presidential Records Act. And I'd make this final point. Remember that Merrick Garland, the Biden Justice Department, gave Biden a pass for his stolen classified records that Biden had back to his time as vice president, even as senator, that he moved several times, that was accessible by his Chinese agent, almost certainly used by Hunter for his foreign corruption, and clearly used by President Biden for his $8 million book advance that he got, so he can use that classified information in his book. Clear espionage. The Biden Justice Department gave him a pass. At the same time, they're going after Trump for presidential records he's allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act.
So how does this trial play out, in your opinion?
I think that Trump is going to get a very fair trial down in Judge Cannon's courtroom in Florida. I don't think that the jury is going to find Trump guilty. And even if they do find him guilty, I think that on appeal, Trump would absolutely win the case on appeal under the Presidential Records Act.
And what about the New York case?
These other cases where you have these Democrat prosecutors and these Democrat judges and these Democrat witnesses and these Democrat juries and these Democrat hellholes of New York, D.C., and Atlanta, Trump has no shot. Like, there's no chance that Trump violated the law like they're claiming he did in New York with Alvin Bragg. You have the Soros-funded Manhattan DA bring in the first indictment ever against a former president who happens to be the leading presidential candidate. The prior Manhattan DA, Cy Vance, the Manhattan U.S. Attorney, the Federal Election Commission, and Alvin Bragg himself declined to bring this case until Matthew Colangelo got deployed from the Biden Justice Department, a senior political appointee. He was the acting number 3, a very senior job, and then he was the number 2 to the number 3, Neil Gorsuch's old job in the Justice Department. He got deployed to be a prosecutor in Bragg's office to bring this indictment against Trump. You have this biased Manhattan Democrat judge, Juan Merchan, who donated to Biden in 2020. He donated to another anti-Trump cause. And more importantly, his daughter, Lauren Merchan, has raised $100 million. She's a top Democrat campaign operative and fundraiser. She's worked for Biden and Kamala and Adam Schiff and many others. She's raised $100 million off of her father's criminal prosecution, the criminal trial over which her father, Judge Juan Merchan, is presiding. He clearly has to recuse under New York statute. Even a former Clinton federal judge went on Caitlin Collins' show on CNN on April 5th and said that this judge had to recuse. He's refused. Their goal is to get President Trump convicted before November 5th, 2024. They don't care if that conviction's upheld on appeal. They just want to be able to label Trump a felon before the election because they think that will resurrect Biden's dead political body and help put him over the finish line.
Oh, that's a lot of information, Mike. Thank you. Here's what you are all hands on. You're taking action. What I love about Article 3 Project is there's ways that people can get involved, because we can no longer sit back and just be quiet and hope and pray that somebody does something to fix all of this. We need to stand up. We need to have our voices heard. So how do we get involved with Article 3 Project? What can we do as individuals?
Yeah, we need to get involved because these are Republican-ending tactics by President Biden and these Democrat prosecutors. If we can throw a former president and a leading presidential candidate in prison instead of electing him on November 5th, 2024, our country is done. And this is where people can get involved. Article3project.org, article number 3project.org. You can take action there. We have an action center where we have patch-through calls to key government officials, emails to key government officials, social media. You can donate. We have a very lean and mean team. I've been largely subsidizing this for the last 5 years, but we can certainly use your support as I hire more people to fight this lawfare, article3project.org, and follow us on social media, Article3Project, at Article3Project on Getter, Twitter, Truth, Facebook when they don't kick us off, Instagram, all of the social media we're on there. And my personal, which is a lot more fiery, is MRDDMIA, MRDDMIA. Those are my initials in Des Moines, Iowa, where I'm from. I know I sound like I'm from the Bronx, but I would encourage all of your viewers and listeners, now is the time to step up. Now is the time to get involved, because we have a country to save on November 5th, 2024.
That's really what's on the line, is our country as we know it. Yes. Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it so much. Please, everybody, go to Article 3 Project. Check out Mike's website. And if you have the inclination, please take action. We cannot sit quiet any longer. So please take action that you can. Thank you again. And thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Let's go out there and make this a better country and a better world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome back. I want to thank our very special guest, Mike Davis. Not too bad he's not very passionate about what he does, but he is an advocate. He is fighting hard. He is doing everything possible to basically save this country. I don't know your political views. That's up to you. But this country is in dire straits. Immigration problem across the illegal immigrants coming across the border, what's happening in our judicial system, what's happening to our laws, what's happening to our Constitution. It's frightening. And as he said, this is really our last shot. So this election is very, very important. If you care about this country, if you care about free speech, if you care about the laws of our country, the Constitution, free markets, this is the election. So if you can take action, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. And the project is called Article 3 Project. Please go to the website, check it out. As he said, this was very interesting. And he said, Mike mentioned this very casually, there could very well be an incident on election day to keep people from going to the polls. So he's now recommending, his group is recommending we get our votes in early and not wait until election day, which is opposite of what we've been told in the past, but get your vote in early. Do not wait until election day. And if you can get involved, please get involved. The Rich Dad Radio Show, we do our best to bring you the facts. Mike was firsthand on the front line, telling you what he knows. Believe him or not believe him, that's up to you. But you got to look for the truth and find it within yourself. Always look for the answers. Don't basically think for yourself. Look for the facts. Look for what's real. And don't believe anybody just because they say they're on media or whatever. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Mike. And again, this is our shot. So please get involved if you can. And I thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.